Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be a first impressions video. In today's first impressions video, we are taking a look at my SIG 516 upper. And before we get this video started, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to this video's sponsor. This video's sponsor is going to be Air Venturi. I am finally getting into the PCP airgun world, and man, it is pretty freaking cool. Air Venturi has a wide variety of PCP and other air rifles for a great selection. Whether you are looking for some big bore stuff, they even got like up to 50 cal in certain options, or the 25 cal Avenge X. I've been taking a look at the Avenge X so far, and it is pretty freaking wild. You guys are going to be noticing, yes, that is a real mini ACOG on a PCP air rifle, but you know what? It's pretty freaking awesome. It really unlocked kind of something in me that was like my childhood, but even cooler because it's super high-powered stuff. When you get into the PCP world, this stuff is no joke. It's sending a 25 cal pill out at around 1,100-1,200 feet per second. It is pretty awesome, but I seriously appreciate Air Venturi's support on my channel. You can check them out on a few different airgun retailers out there online, and I cannot thank them enough. The SIG 516. It has been a minute since I've filmed the original range B-roll of this video. Only one thing, or I should say two things, on this upper have changed since the B-roll. And don't worry, I will be going over the new change, which is this rail, in a standalone video in the future. But for right now, I'm gonna act almost as if it's not even there. Now, this is a very hard to find Midwest Industries 516 M-LOK rail that is specifically designed for the SIG, so it is a drop-in fit. In the B-roll footage, you guys are noticing I had the OG quad rail on it, and that's what we're gonna be talking about primarily for the entirety of this video. And I did have a GG&G vert grip instead of the BCM M-LOK vert grip, but those were the only two changes. A few months ago, I want to say a little bit longer than a few months ago now, these LE trade-in older police-issued 516 uppers started floating around out there. Now, they had the Patrol quad rail, which is sick, and these were, again, the older 516 uppers. So we have that pre-LWRC copyright issue with the bolt carrier group. So these are the older, basically, LWRC bolt carrier groups, and some might say that the quality level of the old 516s far exceeds the newer 516s. Now, I'm not going to say that is 100% accurate because I personally have not had a chance to take a look at any of the newer 516s. This is a model that is discontinued nowadays, but they were making these guns up until just a few years ago. SIG as a company during this time that these uppers were coming out was definitely going to be a little bit higher on the QC market than SIG today, and that's just kind of my opinion. But nonetheless, I saw an opportunity to purchase one of these uppers at a price that I just could not pass up, and I figured, you know what? Let's have the 416 at home and give the 516 a shot here on the channel. Now, I originally had this Aero M4E1 lower on another 10.5 SBR build. I decided to kind of swap some things around, and that is why I switched to the 516 10.5 upper for this SBR build. So as far as the lower, you guys have seen this before. It's just an Aero M4E1. I have the B5 SOP mod stock on the back and an old Troy pistol grip here in the rear. Goon tape all over the place, and you know that's just how I roll. But I figured it worked out perfectly because I didn't even have to SBR another lower. I just kind of had one ready to go, and this upper, of course, sat perfectly on there. Now, the 516 is going to come with a 10.5-inch barrel, and it is short-stroke gas piston. The original designer and creator of the HK 416 actually moved on to SIG. Pretty much everyone knows this story by this point, and he moved on to SIG and designed the 516. So this is essentially identical. Unfortunately, parts are not compatible, but it is identical to a 416 in the way that it operates, in its reliability. Some folks say that the 516 is going to be a little bit more reliable than the 416 in the long term. The 416s have a way about just beating the living crap out of themselves, and I would say that's probably pretty accurate with the 516, considering it has a nice adjustable gas system up here in the front, which we will talk about. I did run this gun suppressed, and the original owner, whatever police department had this before me, ran it probably a good bit. I'd say maybe 3,000 to 4,000 rounds, but nothing crazy. A little bit of a cautionary tale on these 516 uppers. I'm seeing a lot of them out there on the market that are rough. Not only are they rough, people are asking like $1,200 for just the upper with the quad rail. Now, most of those are coming with the really nice Warwick or quote-unquote SIG flip-up sights, and that is awesome. But again, when it comes to $1,100, $1,200 for this upper, I just don't think it's worth it, especially for like a rusted up piston and a few other things. The other thing you should be aware of when it comes to the 516 uppers and the shape that it's in, there are no parts available anywhere for these uppers. So I got news for you. When this thing eventually breaks down at some point or another, that's about it. There's really not all that much you're going to do about it aside from getting a custom gunsmith to try and fabricate certain things. But at its heart, up in the front, this is a completely proprietary system to SIG, which they've now discontinued. So again, parts are very difficult to find. I really like the 516s. I have had no issues with them throughout the years. I've had experience with them before, but I've never owned one. And I've also never taken a look at the 516 10.5 variation that this is here. So we got it to the range. As far as how did it shoot, it shot really, really well. Now, I thought it was a little interesting. Again, we ran this suppressed, and as I always do, I start on essentially the full gas setting, see how it runs suppressed, and then slowly work my way down. We have an adverse setting, which is fully open and just full brute force of the gas. And then we have kind of your middle of the road, just standard ammunition, standard condition setting. And then we have a suppressed setting. Now, this gun did run suppressed in the suppressed setting, but it was sluggish. Man, that bolt was not locking home most of the time. It was almost completely shut off with gas. And again, I don't know what type of suppressor you would have to make that run 100% of the time, but really I kept it on the standard gas setting for a majority of the day, and that's where it kind of thrived. Now, I did run it on the fully adverse setting, and although it was incredibly overgassed, I would say, I don't know that it was anything that was damaging. Now, because of the collectability of this upper and what it has, I'm really trying to not baby it, but also take care of it. I don't really want to put it through any extreme unnecessary wear if I don't have to. So having an adjustable gas system, especially if you plan on running it suppressed, is really nice on these short stroke guns because they can get gassy very, very quickly. Now, the factory quad rail that came on these guns is a little bit of a plus and a little bit of a minus depending on who you are. So the biggest complaint about them, you have this kind of funky looking SIG gas block up in the front. Now, these quad rails ended perfectly so that just the gas block is just like hanging out, and it's got some SIG designs on the side, and it looks kind of crappy. I'm really not a huge fan of it. So I was not a huge fan of the quad rail only because it uncovered the 516 gas block. Now, funny enough, as I continued to use the gun, I didn't mind as much that it was open because it, you know, at its heart, when you look at it like this, it just looks like any other AR. The Midwest did a great job, as we'll talk about in a later video, on this rail, getting it about like any other AR rail, but it makes it not quite as distinguishable. Whereas if you have the quad rail and you have that just kind of interesting look of the SIG 516, you can immediately tell by the gas block, oh wow, that's a 516. Does it matter? No. But I just figured, you know, I would say at first, yes, the gas block is annoying, but as time goes on, it's actually not too bad. It's kind of cool to take a look at. As far as how rigid the quad rail is, it's excellent, and it does have an anti-rotational tab up there in the front. You guys know I love the quad rail, really easy to mount stuff on, and I experienced no issues with this. A lot of folks were telling me that their 516s had gas blocks that were actually canted, so mounting iron sights on them were a little difficult. In this case, the front sight block and the gas block was not canted, but I was noticing that it was just slightly off, and I'm not quite sure if the entire rail is canted a little bit. Maybe I'm just kind of seeing them look exact, but maybe they're just a little off. I don't know. Something was a little weird, but it did shoot reliably. I had no concerns there. I was hoping it would shoot reliably with it being a short stroke gas piston. With any short stroke design, you have somewhat of a kind of interesting like wobble, just a little bit of a wobble that's different from your standard DI gun. And a lot of folks think, oh man, it's got to be like wicked fast for some reason to shoot a piston gun. And ultimately, I find that it's a little bit slower for me to shoot piston guns just because of the strange recoil impulse that they have. If you ever shot one, you probably know exactly what I mean. But it is just, again, a little bit interesting. Now, when you get used to it, it's not too bad at all. And since this was not necessarily a true first impressions video, being a used gun, I did outfit it with everything that I would like. Now, the sights came on it right from the get, which is really cool. These are awesome steel flip-up sights. I did put the EOTech up top, and of course, I'm rocking a Streamlight ProTac. No issues there. I was running it primarily with my Silencer Co. Omega, and that is why I have a 3-chambered ASR brake up in the front. And preferably, I would run a flash hider, but it's not the end of the world. I don't mind running the brake. It was just all I had left at the moment. Ultimately, if you can find one of these 516 uppers, I don't think it would be a bad deal at all to pick one up. They're pretty cool, and if you want a 416, but you don't want to spend over $4,000 or $3,000 to pick one up, this is about as close as you are going to get in the, what I think it should cost, sub $1,000 area, or right around $1,000. So that is going to wrap up this first impressions video on the 516. I already have videos staged and getting ready to go on this Midwest Industries 516 M-LOK rail system, so stay tuned for that. If you guys have any questions about this gun or anything else on the channel, please throw them down below in the comment section, and I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, head up to the description for the ways to support the channel, and as always, stay tuned for more great videos coming soon.